Pam, Reverend Vaughn, fellow classmates, we are going to talk about Advent. Advantageous. I would like for us to go on a journey together, and that journey is going to be to Christmas. Starts out with a story about a guy and a girl who had the whole world at their fingertips. And then it was all taken away, just like that. And God stepped in, and He wrote in that moment something that would change history for eternity. There's going to be a couple things we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to go through a little bit of the history of Advent, and then we're going to talk about the first great promise God made. And from that, we're going to move on to the Christmas miracle that happened. And then talk about the redemption of a deferred hope that was there for a very long time. Advent falls on the 1st of December, usually the first Sunday of December, and carries itself through Christmas. Now, it's more than an anticipation of Christ's birth. You have two parts to it, and it gets looked over a lot. It's a time of preparation for the season that is awakening on the horizon. And it first occurred, there is evidence of it in the 4th century of the church in what's present day Spain and Europe. One of the first records of it taking place was at the Council of Saragossa. That happened in 380 AD. It was a meeting to answer a Gnostic-inspired movement, which was deemed a heresy. And so they counterbalanced it with a celebration of the incarnation of Jesus. And so it made sense theologically. Now, Advent has two derivations, Adventus, which is Latin, and Parousia, which is Greek. And they both have the same meaning. And that is for the coming of Christ in the flesh and for His second coming. For Him coming in the flesh, God spoke about Him and made a promise to Abraham and Sarah that had more weight to it than they knew at the time. They were well in age and didn't think they could have any kids. And they did. And they had more kids than they could ever imagine. Blotted out the sky with the stars, the amount of children they would end up having. And God spoke about one specific child through the prophets that would come out of this promise He made to them. And Isaiah was one of those. And for these prophets, there were hundreds of prophecies. 108 to be exact. And Peter Stoner was a renowned mathematics and astrology professor. And in 1958, he did a little study and calculated that the probability for 8 out of the 108 Messianic prophecies to be fulfilled would be 1 in 100 quadrillion. That's a big number. With that statistic, that would make Christmas the most significant miracle to happen in history. because the Savior of the world would come in the flesh and come to fruition of that promise that God made to Abraham and Sarah. Because through that promise, the tribe of Judah was born, and from the tribe of Judah came David, and from David, his descendants were Joseph and Mary. Going back to a garden, we start with a fruit that would introduce sin into the world. Then to Abraham and Sarah, and that's where God plants his seed so that it would become the fruit of his promise to them. Through Joseph and Mary and the divine intervention, the Savior is born. And he would become the reconciliation that mankind would need to be with God again. I don't know about you, but Advent, there's a little bit more to it. There's more to it than just a calendar that check you off the dates leading up to Christmas. We start off with perfection, calamity, seed sown, a birth of a child, and then a great anticipation for the season that we're in for his second coming. So I hope the next time you hear Advent, you're able to tell about the journey to Christmas and see it in a new light and share it with others. Have a good night.